we believe in.
Good evening. Welcome to the Hoosier Huddle podcast after the dust settles on phase 3 of Indiana's 2023 recruiting cycle. It has been a better than expected recruiting cycle for Indiana. I think we'll all agree on that. I'm Sammy Jacobs. Along with me is Alex Compton from HoosierHuddle.com and Matt Weaver from Peegs.com. Matt, just first thoughts on this recruiting class. Is it better than expected? You know, IU's coming off a 4-8 season, 6 wins over the last 2 years. A lot of doom and gloom on social media. But this class, with the transfers included, comes in the top 40 in the overall rank. I'm reading that right on 247, right? The overall is their rank with the transfers. They have a top 10 transfer class as well. Just take us through how does Tom Allen pull this one off?
You know, I mean, I've always said this staff could recruit, and you know they fortunately proved me right more times than not. I mean, it is better than when you look at the last 2 years. It is better than I think what a lot of people expected going into the offseason, especially from the transfer point of view. I think they're 8th or 9th or something right around there in the transfer rankings. Like you said, overall top 40, which, if you had asked me 2 or 3 months ago, would they be top 40? I probably would have laughed. I mean, I'd be like, they'll be lucky to be top 60. And they've done a great job. I mean, it's got to translate to the field. I mean, we all know that. So it doesn't really mean anything now, but they have in my opinion, at the very least, they've replaced the talent that left with equal or better talent. Now, does that mean the production is going to be as good or better? We'll have to wait and see. But I think from a talent standpoint, I think they've matched up what they lost, at a minimum, and you could probably make the argument that it's a little bit better. So, but I think they've done a good job, but you got to obviously, like we keep beating this horse to death, but you got to start translating it to wins on the field, and obviously that's been a problem the last 2 years. But I think there's a lot of good things. And I said it the last time we talked. To me, Bob Bostat's the biggest pickup they've got. I mean, this is a top 5 O-line coach in college football, and I think he's going to have a huge impact on that O-line.
Some of the newer transfers, Allen broke his recruiting into 3 phases. Phase 1 was that early signing period, or National Signing Day, whatever they call it now. The early signing period. Phase 2 was the transfer window. We haven't talked to you about that transfer window, Matt. I think the biggest fish out of that transfer window was Taven Allen. Is this, everybody's excited about it? He was in it, at Tennessee, has played in 3 games. Is this hype going to be met with, some production on the field? Now, I'm probably going to throw the opener in the trash since IU opens up with Ohio State. But what does Taven Jackson bring to the table?
Well, I mean, obviously he's an athletic kid. I mean, got good size, 6'3", 6'4", 200 plus pounds. At Center Grove, he wasn't asked to do a ton. You have to remember when he played at Center Grove, their D line, they had, what's his name, went to Ohio State. They had a guy go to Minnesota who's now, they had a guy Minnesota who's now at Kansas. Then another guy go to Michigan State, and then the 4th guy I think played college football, but maybe not D1. I mean, they were loaded. All he had to do really was kind of not make mistakes and manage the game. Eric Moore's an old school coach. They're going to run the ball. And they had Carson Steele too. I mean, so he had a lot of weapons around him, but he's a talented guy. He's got a good arm. I know he impressed a lot of people in that the quarterback competition. The Elite 11 or whatever it is. I think he really opened some eyes there. So I think he hasn't played a ton. And that's really, basically the story of that quarterback room. You got 3 guys who, they don't have much more game snaps than you and I do. So it's not a lot of experience there, but there is a lot of talent, and it'll be interesting to see how Taven looks. I mean, I think right now this is what they're going to roll with as far as quarterback goes. Now, if it's a struggle in the spring and they're not comfortable with it, then I think you could see them try to go get somebody. But right now, I think kind of their plan is to go with these guys and see how it shakes out coming out of spring ball.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, I think Matt hit it on the head. I think for the most part, I think you consider the first 2 portions of the offseason recruiting a success. A lot of guys out, a lot of guys in, but that's not an IU thing. That's kind of a college football thing. So for people that are, the sky's falling and this and that, yeah, I mean, the records the last 2 years have been atrocious, but at the same time, in this current age of college football, the roster movement is just going to be there, especially if you're a program like Indiana. You need to upgrade facilities, you need to upgrade NIL, you need to upgrade obviously the win-loss record, things like that. But the roster movement's going to be there. So I think first we'll kind of run through the three guys. You lost some guys out of two other programs in the portal. Again, I think that's fine. I think you lose AJ Barner, you lose Emery Simmons, and you lose CO. I think those are kind of the three that maybe Chris Keys. Yeah, Chris Keys as well. Corner goes down back home to Mississippi State, so good for him. But I think those are probably the four that you're like, yeah, sure, I'll take them back. The rest of them, and again, no hard feelings. Anyone that wears an Indiana jersey, I love you for life, but I wish you well at the next stop. I'm not really going to miss you. So I'm excited for these new guys. I'm excited to see what they bring, but I think those are probably the four out of, I think IU had between 12 and 15 guys transfer. Excuse me. So, you'd like those guys back. You'd like everybody to stay. You'd like everybody to be healthy and productive for 4 or 5 years, but that's just not how it's going to go. So I think starting there, I think you did a pretty good job retaining the roster. Obviously, McCullough leaving is another one that you wish you had back. But that is what it is. So I think you keep Jalen Lucas. I think he's kind of your centerpiece on offense heading into next season. Whether or not he was ready for it as a true freshman, up for debate, but you definitely saw the it factor. You saw what we were raving about. You saw what national recruiting analysts were kind of raving about when they flipped him from Tulane last season. So keeping him was kind of another big, not under the radar, but almost forgotten as we talk about kind of the new faces. Almost had to re-recruit him, which is, as crazy as it sounds, just the age of college football today. So Matt, we hit on Jackson already. Obviously, there were a lot of different quarterback names thrown around. Taven Jackson is the guy. A lot of comfortability and familiarity between both sides there. Looking more so for this class of January transfers. I think you start with the receivers. You bring in E.J. Williams from Clemson, former top 200 recruit. Saw probably his best flashes as a true freshman. And so obviously a challenge for him to kind of regain, the projections or the potential. But 6'3", what do you like about him, Matt?
He's a big athletic guy. Coach Allen talked about him a little bit at that press conference a couple of weeks ago. Can really run. And they need some more guys like that. They need some more speed. They need some more game breakers. I mean, Cam Kemper's a good receiver, but you like to get a guy who can kind of stretch the field a little bit more, and he can obviously do that. You thought DJ Matthews might be that guy, but he just could never stay healthy the 2 years he was at Indiana. So, I think he's a guy that can give him that. And like you said, it's been a few years since he was really productive. And in fairness to him, the last couple of years, the quarterback situation at Clemson has been a little uneven. But he's a guy that, this is the kind of guy that, you hope he comes in, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He had the big ranking out of high school. And this is a guy that, this is his last chance. This is his chance to show the next level that he's a next level player. And he's going to have an opportunity to be a focal point in the Indiana passing game. And so, if he can kind of harness that ability, I think he's got a chance to be a nice player for IU.
Yeah, I think all the potential's there, but that's kind of, what IU is going to have to take shots on right now. If you're not winning ball games, is you're going to have to take chances on that potential. So, I mean, he'll be in the mix, obviously, for snaps at kind of that outside receiver position, but we'll see how Cam Camper heals up. But I do like IU's wide receiver room as a whole. And then Sammy, you go into the FCS ranks, you pull DeQuise Carter out of Fordham, highly, highly productive player. Seems like a great contested catch guy, but tell us about Carter.
That's the guy I like coming out of this class. Not only Fordham being in the Bronx, New York City program. It's a good FCS program, a lot of history there. That quarterback he played for went on to win a lot of awards down in the FCS level. I think he could be this year's Camp Camper. He put up 3,000 career yards, um has all sorts of records at Fordham and things like that. So, and he's going to have, as Matt said, the EJ Williams has the chip on his shoulder of trying to prove himself as a former 4-star. Well, I think DeQuise Carter has that chip on his shoulder to, hey, I could play with the big boys too, and I'm going to do my best to show out in the Big Ten so that I can make it to the next level and get to the NFL. He's 6 foot 196. He's upped his stock as a high school player. He was a 2-star coming out of high school. He's rated as a 4-star as a transfer. I think he's the sleeper in this class. People are going to say he's from Fordham. And things like that. He had the offer list out of Fordham was Appalachian State and Tulane, which okay. But yeah, he's the guy that I'm going to be watching in the fall and definitely in the spring as being somebody who could work his way, maybe not start right away, but definitely into the main rotation wide receiver, which is what IU needs, because we saw when Camper went down, when DJ Matthews went down on a punt return. Alex, I don't know who would have predicted that, but those second and third string receivers didn't come up and make plays. Now IU had their quarterback issues, but I think adding a guy like DeQuise Carter makes the quality depth that much more at that position.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's a guy I think you can put kind of in all three positions at wide receiver on that IU offense. So excited to see what he can kind of bring. Already hit on Taven Jackson, but then Matt, rounding out the more recent class of transfers, you go get Christian Turner from Wake Forest, 2 years at Wake, 2 years at Michigan, playing his last year at IU. You figure he comes in to kind of spell Josh Henderson, right?
Yeah, I think obviously anymore there's no it's the days of having one guy, unless you just got like a Christian McCaffrey from back in the day, or he's just or Jonathan Taylor when he was at Wisconsin. The days, or the guy down at what's his name, Robinson at Texas. The days of a guy getting 25 to 30 carries are probably over. So he was productive at Wake Forest. Didn't put up huge numbers, but when he got the ball, his yards per carry was good. I think he's a good fit. I mean, I think Josh Henderson kind of the guy, and then obviously you mentioned Lucas. Not that Lucas won't be the guy, but I think they're gonna use him kind of like a jack of all trades, kind of a gadget guy, which I kind of hate that term, but that's kind of what he'll be. But he will definitely, I think, get his fair share of carries. But with Turner and Henderson and Lucas, I like that, if you call it the three-headed monster. I guess the question after that is just kind of who's next, because we've not gotten really, and he has not really gotten anything from Holloman or Trent Howland as far as running the ball. So if you have an injury, that's where you kind of have maybe some questions. But both those guys are going to be their third year in the program. So if this is their chance to step up if they get the opportunity. But I like Turner. I think he's a nice fit. Gives you a little bit of speed. He can run between the tackles, and I think with him and Henderson and Lucas, like I said, I think it's a nice trio of guys.
Yeah, I think you like the room. I like the experience, but yeah, I think personally, I wish there was a third guy, but we'll see. That's what spring ball's for. So switching sides of the ball, it took 3 years, Matt, but Nicholas Toomer is an IU Hoosier. He was one of the top targets for IU in the 2019 class. So obviously they were super familiar with him, but talk about that like re-recruiting process. And is he a corner, or is he going to move to safety?
I think he could be either. And that's one thing I really like about him. Now, his stats were modest at Stanford, so I'm not trying to, blow him like he's going to become an all-conference player. But in Indiana's defense, they like to move DBs around. You saw it with Tywan Mullen a couple years ago when they had the great defense. They like to move guys around and use them in different roles. And Nick, he was a safety. They recruited him as a safety out of high school. He was really close to coming to IU. I mean, basically, I don't blame the kid. He chose Stanford because it's Stanford academically, and I don't blame him a bit. And he loved IU, he loved the staff, but he wanted to go get that degree, and kudos to him for doing that. But he's a guy that I really think he's got that versatility, which I really like. Now like I said, his stats were modest out there, so he's probably going to be, this is going to be more is going to be asked of him maybe than he's done in the past. But he's a really smart kid. Obviously, you go to Stanford and graduate, you got some intelligence. Great kid. Is one of the guys I really enjoy getting to know the most during the recruiting process, and I'm really excited personally just because I think so highly of him that he's at Indiana, and I think he's going to be a nice addition to that secondary where there's obviously a lot of snaps are up for grabs with all the losses from last year.
Yeah, I think besides the quarterback room, which obviously is a topic of discussion for any football team or program every offseason, I think the secondary is kind of IU's biggest point of discussion in spring ball and fall camp. But switching positions, but sticking with Stanford, I think kind of out of left field. So Matt, I guess first talk to us about how they identified Jacob Mangum-Farrar, and then Sammy, tell me what you like about him.
Well, I mean, I got wind of him visiting. I think it was that week in January when things opened back up. And he's a big guy, like 6'4", 235. Right. Looked like, at Stanford, I think they play a 3-4. So, but I think he was more of an inside guy. I would assume that's what he'll be at Indiana. Not saying he's not a good athlete, but I'm guessing you probably don't want him out there in space at that stinger spot. If he can come in, and kind of, because right now after Aaron Casey, there's a lot of question marks at linebacker. But he's obviously Aaron Casey's a terrific player. He was at stinger last year. I'm sorry, he was at middle linebacker last year. Then they moved him to stinger when Cam Jones went down. So it'll be interesting to see. My guess is if Jacob Mangum-Farrar is a middle linebacker, Casey stays at stinger. But it'll be interesting to see how they play him. But he's a big guy. He had some nice moments. Battled a lot of injuries, so that's a little bit of a concern. Can he stay healthy? But if you can get, to me, he's kind of like the guy that you got from Miami. I'm sorry, his name escapes me.
Bradley Jennings,
Bradley Jennings, who played some, but was kind of in and out. But came in, and when he played this year at Indiana, I thought he was productive. I thought he was a solid player. He wasn't a superstar, but you didn't lose a lot when he came in, which is what you want when a guy comes in. If he can kind of give you the same production, and let's be honest, they're going to rotate guys at linebacker. I mean, Casey's the one guy to be out there a bunch, but they're probably going to rotate 2 or 3 other guys. Hopefully, they can find those 2 or 3 other guys. But I like the pickup. He was not a name I knew a lot about until kind of the last minute, and wasn't sure if they were going to get him. But like they did that week, they batted almost 100% with all the guys they brought in for those visits. So it's a nice get. I think he's a 1-year guy. I don't know if he can get 2. He might be able to get 2 because I think there were some injuries there. But regardless, I think it's a nice pickup for an older guy, a smart guy. He's played high-level football, so that nothing's going to be a culture shock for him.
Yeah, Sammy, tell me about the other two linebackers. You get Josh Rudolph from Austin Peay, another FCS guy, super productive. I think he's a guy that probably plays more outside, super fast, super quick twitch kind of a player. Josh Rudolph, Sammy, what do you got?
Again, it's another player coming from the FCS level. Who's going to try and prove to be on the Big Ten level. And, he's listed at 6 foot, 226, so kind of undersized, but you need speed in that linebacker position to run, east and west on the field too. Give me all these guys from the lower level who have been productive, who want to prove themselves at the Big Ten level, because that's what IU needs. You need players who, have been told you can't do this, you can't do that, and who are just like, nah, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove that I belong here. And that's, I think, what the program needs. That's the identity of the IU program too. Is you don't belong in the Big Ten, you're going to get relegated. You're going to finish 7th or whatever, 8th in division and all that stuff. So. I like him. Austin Peay has been a pretty solid FCS program the last couple of years too. He did have offers from Appalachian State there too. So I like it. He might not be that every down back at linebacker, but he could come in, be a good special teams player as well, and hopefully. When you're in a passing situation and you need a speed rusher, could get after the quarterback a little bit too from that linebacker position.
Yeah. And then Matt, sticking with linebacker, but I'll give you a package deal here, which I think it was with the recruiting pitch, but you go get the Minor brothers, you get You get Daryl from UTEP, the linebacker, and then you get Kobe from Texas Tech, DB. Talk to me about Daryl first, and then tell me where you think Kobe plays.
Well, I mean, Daryl was at UTEP. He's been in a few schools. Obviously, if you go look back, I think he started at Texas Tech and then went to Abilene Christian, I believe, and then I don't know, it might have been a JUCO, and then on to UTEP. Not a lot of production. At UTEP only played in a few games last year. One thing I think we got to realize about transfers now, back when you would get a transfer 5-10 years ago, they were expected to come in and basically be a guy, be a dude. Now it's almost, I think, transfer recruiting. Obviously, you want to get as many guys as you can, but some of these guys are going to be special teams guys. And not to put down Daryl, but I think he's a guy who comes in and immediately helps your special teams. Doesn't mean he can't get in the mix at linebacker, but some of these guys, that's what their role is going to be. He's 6'2", 225 or so pounds. Comes down from Texas. I think he's from the same high school as Brendan Sorsby, if I'm not mistaken. Down there, I think it's Corinth, Texas, Lake, Dallas, or something like that. So he's a guy. I think he'll give you an athletic body. Kobe, he's listed. They listed him at safety. I'm looking at the database. I'm pretty sure he played corner at Texas Tech, and I think a lot of people expected him to kind of be in the mix to start at Texas Tech. Obviously, with Coach Randolph, you had a connection there. He knew about him. This is a guy that, along with the Jameer Johnson, I think this is a guy you're bringing in to come in and play. Come in and compete for those cornerback spots. And obviously, there's going to be an opportunity to do so. So I think he comes in. I think he gets in the mix right away at corner. At least that's what you hope. Maybe if maybe he's a guy you move around a little bit, but my guess is he's going to be primarily a corner. And they're going to, obviously, with the loss of Taiwan and Jalen, you need, and then even Brylan Lanier, who was kind of the third corner last year. That spot is kind of wide open, and that may mean Nick Toomer, as we talked about earlier, maybe he's more of a corner, even though they liked him at safety out of high school, just because I think there's a bigger need right now at corner for some of these new guys than there is at safety.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, and I think I kind of like, Tom Allen likes the, see the ball, fly to the ball kind of defense, and I think his best teams were kind of like that, especially on the back end. So I think the positional versatility is good, but will be kind of interesting to see where that two deep shakes out. So defensively, I think the last thing IU did that was much needed was beef up the defensive line a little bit. You go get 3 defensive line transfers, which I think are all going to play, obviously. You get another guy that was ranked in the top 200 coming out of high school, Matt. You go get Marcus Burris from Texas A&M, who was, I think, close to a top 100 recruit coming out of high school, redshirted and then played a little bit last year. I mean, he's the kind of guy, I think, watching his tape where, everything goes right, he stays healthy, develops. He's the kind of guy that you look back on and go, how the hell did he end up at Indiana? But obviously, same kind of thing as EJ Williams from Clemson. Yeah. You gotta show it now, right?
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. You could call him the defensive version of EJ Williams. Circumstances a little bit different, but this is a big time recruit. I mean, this is the kind of guy that Indiana doesn't get out of high school, or it's really hard to get. And this is one of the guys that I'm kind of most excited about, just because I think the talent's there now. It's and I think there was a connection. I'm guessing Coach Paul Randolph recruited him, down in that area and being at Texas Tech. I'm sure he knew about him. So, but this is a guy that I think, and he may have a little bit. I mean, he's 6'4", 290, but maybe he's a guy that's athletic enough that on early downs you can play him a little bit at a strong side D end, and then you punch him inside and on passing downs. But whatever it is, between him and Nick, the guy they got last year from IMG. Sorry, I'm having trouble with names tonight. I think they got a couple young guys who have a chance to be really, really good. Guys that they normally don't get. Indiana doesn't get, and I like this pickup a lot. I think this is a guy. I'm not saying he's going to come in and immediately make an impact, but I think you're right. In a year or two, we could look back and be like, man, how did Indiana get this guy? Because I think he could be an all-conference type of player.
Yeah, and then it's Nick James, 99.
Yeah, my bad, Dominic. Yeah,
Florida. Yep, Dominic, Nick. Yeah, I think Nick James will be a good player too, and you're going to need him, especially with CO leaving. So, Sammy, Paul Randolph, another connection. Philip Blitty, D tackle from Texas Tech, grad transfer. I think experienced, a Power 5 body. has been pretty productive. I think he's a guy that you plug into the 2 deep right away, right?
Yeah, you hope so. And you'd like to see him get above 300 and whatever. But hold on. I want to congratulate the IU women's team for knocking off Iowa. I think they won by 9 points. They took the final score up there. But Terry Morin has that group of ladies playing outstanding basketball. 87-78 over number 5 Iowa. Set a program record for attendance at Assembly Hall 2 tonight. So I do want to shout out the IU women's team. They're playing fantastic ball
Crazy.
and things like that.
Grace Berger went down like a month and a half ago, and it went from, pissed off from playing in a ballroom and Grace getting hurt to now number 2 in the country, put the beat down on number 5 and looking to get hopefully another a 1 or a 2 seed. So pretty crazy, but Cherry's building a monster. Or she built the monster. It is a monster.
Yeah, back to Blitty. He's played in about 20 games at Texas Tech. He's gotten into the backfield. And if he's playing in that the middle of the line, that's what you need somebody to do. Take up those blocks, allow your athletic linebackers and secondary to make plays. And that's when Indiana's defense is rolling, when they had guys like T. Gray Scales, when Micah McFadden and those guys were making plays, you had the defensive line eating up blocks where they're not getting, the offensive line is not getting to the second level and blocking those guys. So he's a guy who could come in. He maybe starts right away, definitely in the rotation. I know in years past, you want to go 3 deep at those positions because we've seen it, Matt. I forgot what year it was, but we were over at Penn State and somebody goes down with a cramp and all of a sudden you got CJ Person burning a red shirt to go in there and try and stop him on a 19-play, like 18-minute drive to end the game and things like that. So you need these guys, and I think they've done a really good job recruiting that defensive line.
Yeah, and then definitely agree. I think you needed the D tackle depth. I think that was one of my biggest things I pointed to. I wasn't as worried, and I think a common theme of the offseason was where's the O-line transfers? Where's the O-line transfers? The guys we have, and we've said this consistently the last year and a half, the guys Indiana has on the offensive line are guys other schools want and would take. The issue is not the guys you had in the room. So I think Matt hit the nail on the head at the beginning. I think Bob Bobstad at the offensive line coach, kind of run game coordinator. I think keeping Rod Carey is a nice move as well as the offensive quality control kind of run game guy. I think that's kind of a bigger pickup than picking up O-line transfers. Obviously, you got Max Longman from UMass in the early window, but but last but not least of the January transfers, Matt, you go get Linnell Carr from West Virginia. I think Sammy and I were kind of exchanging some notes with him when he first signed. I think he's going to play ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I expect him to play ball. I've actually was just asking about some guys this weekend. I've heard good things about Linnell. He's not super tall, but I guess a little bit longer than that they, which in length is so important, especially long arms for linemen, because it just helps you, get off of blocks and be able to use your hands to get past guys. So, but I think this is a guy. I mean, I got to know Linnell a little bit during the recruiting process. Indiana obviously recruited him. That was a William Inge recruit, being from St. Louis, went to West Virginia. So I think it's a good pickup. I've heard actually really good things about Miles Jackson's offseason. Yeah. Not that we're talking about new guys, but he'll be playing that position. Those 2 guys will be playing that bull position. So a nice 1-2 punch there. And they got some young guys coming in that can maybe get in the mix. But I like Linnell. They pass rush. We talked about we talked about Andre Carter back when he committed and how much of an impact we think he can make. And they need somebody on the other side, to get that pass rush off the edges. And between these 3 guys, hopefully they can, because that to me has been by far, even in 2020 when the defense played really well, a lot of it was because of the blitzes and the different things that Kane Womack was able to do. The last 2 years, that wasn't happening for them, and they weren't able to get any kind of a consistent pass rush. So you're not going to get to the quarterback every time, especially in these offenses where they spread the ball and get it out quick. But if you can disrupt the timing a little bit, and hopefully these guys can do that. Real quick on Philip Ladie, I think one of the biggest things I'm excited about him, if you read about his background, he's from Nigeria, went to, I think, somewhere in New Jersey, and was sent to New Mexico and lived in a children's home in high school. He's married and has a young child. I think they talk about culture and how it's kind of been missing the last couple of years. This is the kind of guy, not only on the field, but I think in the locker room, can really make an impact with this team. Even though he may not be much older than some of these guys, his life experience makes him kind of an old soul, or kind of a more of a wise person because of what he's gone through, and the fact that he's got a family and raising the little kids. So I think that to me was a big deal. I was really impressed by his background, and obviously I think he can play, but I think that kind of stuff we talk about the production and the talent, but the culture and the program, I think that we're not saying this, the players and the coaches have said this, has not been where it's needed to be the last 2 years. Hopefully guys like this, Andre Carter, I think, is another guy, because he's played and he's coming. These guys, DeQuise Carter, I think these are the guys that can really bring the right kind of mentality and mindset into this locker room. At least that's what you hope. We'll see if it pans out that way. But that's one. I just want to throw that in there about him real quick. But I get back to Linnell. I think he's a nice addition, and I think hopefully he can help get some pressure off the edge for the IU defense.
Yeah, I think I did say, back to Blitty real quick. I saw he tweeted out, because I think he had his child or his partner had their child at the IU hospital, and I believe I saw him write handwritten notes to kind of the nurses and the staff that helped them, and I think he tweeted it out or put it on his Instagram. But yeah, that's really cool, and his background is really cool. So I'm glad you kind of brought that up. I think we round this out, at least the transfer side, one more time. I think obviously the nature of the position and the nature of the name, you get Taven Jackson. He was a target, obviously, in high school. He's on the record now after, committing to IU, saying, it wasn't an off-season thing. This is a 5+ year relationship. But you finally get him, Matt. Personally, I'm really worried about the quarterback room. I think going into the offseason with 3 guys that really haven't sniffed the field, I think is a tough idea and kind of a make it or break it season. But I guess quickly about Jackson, and then how you think he fits into the room with Lowry and Sorsby.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. If you're coming off a season last year, even if you just went 6-6, you know what I mean? And you went to, even if it was a smaller bowl game, I think you could roll with the Taven Jackson, or at least, not be as concerned. But when you're coming off, what are they, 6-18 the last 2 years, 2-10, 4-8, this is a big season. This is kind of a teetering point, for Tom Allen in this program, in my opinion. And while Taven Jackson's ceiling is incredibly high, can he get to it this year? Can you get to it quick enough? Because obviously we talked about the first game against Ohio State, and that's the other thing. If he comes out and Ohio State just punches you around, he's not used to having to regroup. He's never had to do that at this level. So I think he's a really good fit in what they want to do. He can run. I think the dual threat thing was we and I probably overblew it too myself. I think they want a guy who can be athletic in the pocket. Connor Bazelak, if the pocket was clean, can make throws. But to me, athletic in the pocket is you can move around, keep your eyes downfield, set your feet, and still make throws. When he had to move in the pocket, he was not effective. When he had to go out of the pocket, he was even less effective. I think Taven can be effective both ways. Now, obviously, it's going to be different. He's never really faced this kind of competition, for more than a few snaps. But the talent is there. There's high-level ability, but it's a major roll of the dice. You're absolutely right. It's a major roll of the dice. If they can't add or decide not to add an older guy, we talked about losing guys that are kind of, not that Jack Tuttle was great, but I think if you're IU, you would have been okay with Jack Tuttle coming back just because he's a little bit of a safety blanket for you next year. Not that you expect him to play a bunch, but he's a guy that maybe you can kind of help ease these guys in, and he's a smart guy. When he played, he did have some production. So, to me, not that he was a huge loss, but I think it's more of an understated loss than we talked about and anybody's talked about, just because he would have been an experienced guy that you could kind of lean on until these guys were ready. You don't have that right now, and you may not have that. And I see exactly where you're coming from. It could be tough if they're not ready to play and you're scrambling in May to try to find your quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really interesting. I think the one positive is that all three of those guys are on campus now, so that at least helps in spring ball and getting some reps. So Lowry's enrolled and on campus, so I mean he'll be in for spring ball, so that at least helps. But and then switching over, you added one guy kind of in the what used to be the normal signing period, which at this point feels crazy to say, but
Afterthought.
yeah, you go get Anthony Miller, a legit 6'5", 230, Matt. You get him out of Georgia at a pretty productive program, but he was by all accounts a pretty late riser here, and a guy that was debated on if IU would even play him at offense or defense. But it seems like it's a take at tight end, Matt. Is it not?
Well, he's what a lot of coaches would call a jumbo athlete. Usually, when you think of an athlete, you think of like a corner, receiver, running back, safety type of guy. Jumbo athlete, he's the bigger guy. Would you say 6'5"? I think his coach told me right now he's 6'5", actually pushing 6'6". When I talked to him, and he said 239, but I think he plays. I want to say he might play basketball, so that's probably keeping his weight down a little bit. But right now, gun to the head, I think he's going to be on defense. I think there's a bigger need. Now, maybe he comes in and he blows them away on offense. I mean, primarily he was being recruited by offensive guys, Walt Bell, Kevin Wright. But I think, they need some more edge guys. And, you kind of like to get a young edge guy who could grow into that strong side defensive end. They got Vincent Sneed, but I don't think they got anybody else in this class, on that side of the ball. So, maybe that's where he goes. But, he's come from a great state for high school football, a good program. He was really productive. So good student, his, over 3.0. So I like this pickup. These are the kind of pickups that, they don't really, blow your hair back when you see them, but these are the guys that 2 or 3 years down the road, they become really good players. A 3-star kid in Georgia is a 4-star in a lot of states. I mean, and we'll see how he turns out, but, wherever he ends up, I think he's going to be a nice kid. Probably, he might be a year away, depending on where they play him. He probably needs to get a little bit bigger and stronger, but this might be a stud, stud defensive end down the road, or it may be a game-changing tight end. We'll see what happens. But I really like the get, especially at the late signing period. This is what the late signing period is now for. These kind of guys that slip through the cracks, and and nobody has room for them, and you can go out and get them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a nice ad. So that kind of wraps up the transfer portion. We'll hit on a few topics here as we kind of wrap up, but IU, for all accounts, does pretty well in the portal, does pretty well bringing in high school talent despite a 4-8 season. So you go out, you grab a couple receivers, a running back, a quarterback, and then mostly all defense, including some high upside defensive linemen, which I'm excited about. Sammy, everyone is complaining. Everyone wanted it. It might not be a game, but there's IU spring football open to the public on April 15th.
I may or may not have screamed on the treadmill the other night when they tweeted it. As an IU football junkie who has been begging IU to have a spring game since basically the COVID season. Heck, I don't even know if the 2019 season was the last season they had it or what. I think it's important for them to have some sort of event, whether it's a Hoosier Hysteria like event. And you look at what the Pro Bowl did. Now I know people make fun of it and all that stuff, and it's different with college and practice rules. But having some sort of event where players could see, fans could get in and see players, whether it's doing a 7-on-7 or flag football game or doing a light scrimmage. I think that's good for the program too. I think you need one of those days where it's a team building activity. You have fun, and you got to remember it's a fun game. Football is supposed to be fun, despite what Denzel Washington says in Remember the Titans. It is a fun game, and I think that's you've lost that the last couple of years, and losing stinks and all those things. But it sounds like they're going to have they're calling it a spring football event. They'll have it sounds like they'll have a tailgate, some kids activities, and a meet and greet, which I know. Matt, we've talked about it when you were a kid going down and seeing the IU players on the field and stuff like that. That's how you create the fan base. That's how you grow the fan base, and that's how you get your kid going, hey, Dad, can we go to the game this Saturday? Hey, is IU playing at home this Saturday? And because these kids they don't care if you win or lose. They don't. They just know that they're going to have a fun time because they're at that age where winning and losing doesn't matter. They remember, hey, we got our face painted. We met, we got Jalen Lucas's autograph. We met Anthony Thompson, stuff like that. Then you become a grumpy adult and you care about winning and losing. But I think it's huge. You finally got some momentum in the portal and things like that. So it's time to capitalize. And you go back the last 30 or 40 years of IU football, and every time that there's a moment of opportunity to capitalize, it doesn't seem like they do so. They didn't do it during the Mallory era. Coach Hep passes away. You don't follow up the Insight Bowl with good years, and then coming off of the Kevin Wilson years, you really didn't capitalize on that. You had Wilson resigns, and then after the Gator and Outback Bowl, you failed to gain any momentum in fundraising.
Don't forget that one. Yeah.
Oh, and the Foster Farms Bowl.
And the Foster Farms Bowl, yeah.
And the Foster Farms Bowl. But yeah, it was you failed to fundraise, you failed to, announce some projects that probably needed to be announced. So, and then 2020, unfortunately, was the pandemic year, and to really nobody's fault. You couldn't, it would have been real nice to have fans in the stands for Penn State, to beat Michigan, and things like that. So now they have some momentum, and go capitalize on it. Go get a big crowd for Louisville. Go get a big crowd for homecoming against Rutgers. Go get a big crowd for the Spittoon game, and things like that. So, we'll see. It should be fun. Hopefully they do it. Hopefully they open the practice up to the media as well, and things like that. Because, look, you might want to say, hey, they're opening with Ohio State. We don't want to show anything. There's not. It's come on. You're not hiding anything for Ohio State. They'll figure it out. They'll sniff it out. Unless you're hiding your Chad Powers at quarterback, you're not hiding. You're not hiding much. So
run fast, think fast.
Yeah, run fast, think fast, and stuff like that. So it's it's a step that they need to do. And maybe the spring game, and Alex, you're a marketing guy, this is where you try stuff that you want to do on game day and Saturday.
Well, here's what I was going to say. So I have two things. One, for the fans, you were complaining, you were whining, you were, yada yada about no spring this, no spring that. Now you have to go. You have to show up. It's a Saturday in mid-April. It's going to be it'll probably be nice. It's a free event. It's a free way to watch Indiana football. You bet there's going to be giveaways and the concessions will be open. You can probably go on the field, bring your kids. If you're within an hour and you don't go and you're one of the people that's been going, oh, typical IU, look in the mirror. That's on you. Next, IU needs to do at least 3 things at the spring event that have nothing to do with the actual programming of the game or whatever. One, there better be an NIL booth or a merchandise stand. If you cannot buy a Jalen Lucas t-shirt at the spring event on April 15th, you have 2 months. That is like atrociously bad. If there is not a pop-up stand of NIL shirts and jerseys for the football team at the event, that is terrible. So that needs to be the first thing. The second thing is you need to have, and I'm sure they will, but people saying, hey, and if you don't know, you can buy season tickets for $160, I think, which is a ridiculous bargain. That is such a good deal. If you are in or around the area and you don't do that and you're always complaining about the crowds and the money and the facilities, again, look in the mirror. That is such a good deal. The Young Alumni Student Ticket Package is a fantastic deal, and it's going to let you get Louisville tickets as well. So they need to have that there, pumping season ticket sales and pumping the Louisville game as well. And then the third one is, and we kind of talked about it, but you got to let people meet the guys, talk to the guys. I think it's such a cool laid back environment. There's not going to be 40,000 people that show up, so it's not going to be crazy. You got to do that. I think that's really cool. Let the kids take pictures with the guys. It's not going to be a huge, these crazy media guys like Sammy and Matt aren't going to be there like, oh, who's going to start? Who's starting? Who's starting? It's going to be laid back. It'll be nice to see the three quarterbacks sling the ball around so we can wildly overreact. One of the kickers will miss a kick and we'll wildly overreact about that. So I'm really looking forward to it. So it's going to be great. I'm going to do my absolute best to make the 4-hour drive down there. But it's a Saturday in April. It's free. It's going to be for the families. It's going to be awesome. So if you've been complaining for 4 years and you don't go, look in the mirror. So that's what I'll say about that. We might also have updates soon on the Hoosier Huddle front. We're looking to do a couple events, Sammy. So now
Yes.
we talked about potentially doing something for the spring game, TBD. And then definitely, though, we are going to be doing something in Indianapolis for the Louisville game. So we don't really have a ton of details yet, but it'll be kind of a, meet and greet event, panel, Q&A or something with proceeds benefiting, the place that hosts us and then IU football NIL. So kind of start to keep your eyes out for that, but hopefully we have more soon, Sammy.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely trying to put that together and things like that. And I think those events, if people listen to Assembly Call, will be a lot, like that. We have a good group of listeners and followers and things like that. So it's awesome to meet and greet you guys. Being out at the tailgate the last couple of years, it's been a lot of fun talking football and college sports in general. So definitely keep an eye on that. I know we're meeting with people later next week, and we'll keep you updated. Hopefully, we could throw something together for the spring event. Again, it's a random April and Saturday. Basketball will be over by then. Maybe they tie it in with an IU baseball event too. So I'm excited. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think Matt, I was going to kick it to Matt to end, but quickly from our side, we'll be sure to have, any updates as there's more roster movement. Obviously, the safety coach is an open position right now, so we'll be sure to share any updates and news on that when we have it. Matt, if you want to wrap up and then kind of tell us what you got coming down so our listeners can check you out.
Yeah, your 3 things that you said they need to do for that event on the 15th were great. As the dad of young children, I would add a 4th. Pre-COVID, they used to have that area, I think it would be the southeast corner, where they had like the jump stuff for kids. My kids love that. And my 2 boys like football, but 2+ hours is a long time for them to sit and watch a practice. Do something, have something for the kids. Have a jump thing, have little things where they can do things, before the practice, even during it and after. But do something because it is a long time. I mean, that's a long time for if you got a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kid. To keep them entertained for that long. But that's one thing, and that's, you can tell that I have children. That's what you think about when you have young kids. As far as what I got, really recruiting stories on 24 guys. Spring football starts March 4th. I think that's a Saturday. Pretty sure that's a Saturday. I think there's going to be some kind of I don't know if it's going to be what you call junior day, but something like that where they're going to have visitors. So should start getting names. I've gotten a few here and there, but just really doing stuff on 2024 guys right now, because that's primarily where the focus is. At this point, they're starting to they've offered a ton of guys here in the last month or so. So been doing a lot of stories, been talking to a lot of guys, and then we'll probably do some position previews going into spring ball, like I'm sure you guys will do as well. So that's kind of where we're at. But really looking forward to hopefully getting to watch some spring practice, and even if I have to spend time with Sammy, it'll still be okay.
Yeah, there's a price for everything, right, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, by then I will be complaining about the Yankees and whether or not Aaron Boone should return for his 9 millionth unsuccessful season as Yankee manager. But on that note, Matt, again, IU needs to institute. You leave with as many kids as you come with. It's the Jacob's House rule. And yeah, we're excited for spring football as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Hoosier_Huddle. Keep coming back to HoosierHuddle.com. Rate, click, like, subscribe on YouTube as well, and wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those places. I don't know anymore. I'm an old dude, So if there's any cooler places, Alex, to listen to podcasts, you could shout it out.
No, I think you got them all. So I think you got them all.
All right, that does it for tonight. We'll be back. We'll start our spring practice previews here in the next couple of weeks. Enjoy the rest of basketball season. It's really been a fun 6 weeks with both programs heating up as well and getting ready for March. So we'll be here for football. Whenever people want to talk about football, we are always here, ready to talk. Spring practice again starts March 4th. And you can follow us on Twitter at Hoosier_Huddle as long as Twitter is functioning. Have a great night, and we'll see you in the next couple weeks.